Good morning. Let me know if the screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Visual, sir.
Yes. Fine. So we have discussed 3 modules so far. Module 1 in general about the architectures. Module 2 in detail about the assemblers. Module 3 in detail about the loaders, which has linker as part of the supporting mechanism. Now we look into the another set of system software by name macro processors. These macro processors, as the name says, you might have seen or heard about macros in your C languages, where we might have used like hash defined statements and stuff like that. They are the things which come under these macros. So macro processor, microprocessor, be careful. So microprocessor is different. Macro processor is different. So microprocessor is a processor at the CPU level, whereas a macro processor is very, very little in particular concept. So any English difference between macro and micro? How do you differentiate macro and micro? Micro and macro. You might have heard about microeconomics. Microprocessor, macroprocessor, any relation? Or how to differentiate rather? Macro versus micro.
Sir, micro is small,
Okay.
but not as small as nano.
Okay.
Macro is big, but not as big as like there are other big things other than macro.
Okay. So macro, you want to say is a overall bird view at top level.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Not yes.
Yeah.
There may be a components like on top of macro.
Yes. So macro English means macro means a overall. For example, we have a finance minister who looks at overall economy. There may be individual people who look at the micro level, meaning that they go to the small village level and make sure that people are getting some finance. If that is the case, root level. So micro talks about the root level, the smaller group, whereas a macro looks at the overall, what you can say, a bird's view, or maybe a overall concept of or maybe overall idea about a concept. So that is the concept behind the macro. So micro is a low level, macro is a maybe a higher level. That's what we can differentiate. So microprocessor is at low level, meaning that it does the actual entity, actual performance of your activity at the low level. That means that microprocessor means it is at the lower level, nothing beyond that. That is what we call it as a microprocessor. Whereas a macroprocessor, it will not go in detail of that, but it will be able to perform certain topics which you might be using at your programming level. So that is how the differentiation we can look at microprocessor, macroprocessor, because normally only the one letter is difference in between, but the concept wise they are totally a different concept. That's what we have to keep in mind. So that is the idea behind the microprocessor and macroprocessor. So microprocessor is the assembler, what you have seen, the processor with which the actual processing happened. When you talk about a computer, your CPU, that is your microprocessor. Whereas a macroprocessor is a piece of software, is a piece of system software which is going to enable to write our macros. So any other idea about macros? Whatever you know about macros, can some of you let me know? Where you have heard and where you will be using? How do you differentiate with any other concepts? Macros.
In Excel, we have macros.
Okay, what is that?
Sir, it's like defining a rule or something to perform.
Maybe a small, some set of small programs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they perform some activity. So macro means they perform some activity. So precisely macros. Even in C, C++, you might have used macros. So what was the context which you have used macros in C or C++? Any examples of macros in C, C++?
To define.
Okay, let's say a hash define, you might have used max 10 for array declaration, or if you have done with mathematics, you have used pi value 3.14, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anything else apart from those two? So one, we have used a simple statements like hash define for defining some variables so that we can use them with some meaning internally. That's good. Anything else? Have you used any functions with macros? Have you used any functions with macros? For example, I want to perform a square of a number. Can I define it as a macro? Four square, 4 into 4, 4 cube, 4 into 4 into 4, let us say. I want to take a square of a or a cube of a particular value or number. Can I define it as a macro?
We can, sir, but we haven't done that.
You have not used it, but a possibility. Just don't worry about whether you have used, but it's a possibility.
Yes, sir.
I can define no hash define space square sqr within brackets x space x into x, or I want to define a cube, hash define cube within parenthesis y space y into y into y. So if that is the case, I can define not only values or variables, but also I can define functions as a macro. So that is how the actually macros have been generated. So macros, as you rightly said in Excel sheet, we use the macros for a certain smaller functionality. So macro is a purpose. Macro is a small function with which we are going to execute some program or some small set of instruction, let us say. If that is the case, macros can also be defined in the same fashion in our high level languages as well. Maybe in C or C++, you can try to define not only variables, but also these small functions. Okay. So any relation between macros and inline functions? Macros and inline functions. What is inline function? In C++, you might have heard about inline functions.
Yes, sir. The code of the function will be brought in where it's called.
Okay. Okay. How do you differentiate between inline function and normal function?
Inline function means it declares inside the class.
Okay. What next? That's fine. Good. Anything else? So if you define a function that is a member function inside a class, we call it as an inline. So you mean to say, if you want to define a class outside a function, it cannot be inline? I want to declare a function outside definition of a class, but I want to make it as inline. Is that possible?
Yes, sir, I guess.
Okay. In C++, it is possible using the keyword inline. There is a keyword by name inline. So normally, when you define a member function within the class definition, by default, it becomes a inline function. But normally what we do, we define a function, member function outside the class using all our scope resolution operators. When you do that, it becomes a normal function. But still, If you want to make a member function, but defined outside the class definition, still as an inline function, that is possible by qualifying that function as a inline. Inline is like a constant int, volatile character. You make a special qualifier. You can use inline as another keyword as a qualifier for a member function. Even if it is defined outside the class definition, it can be pushed as a inline function. Okay. What is the need for inline function then? Why I have to make a function as inline? Is it required? In function, normally what is a function? A function is defined somewhere. When there is a call for a function, when there is an invocation for a function, the control will be passed from calling function to the called function. That called function will get executed. Control will be sent by the operating system to that. After execution is over, control comes back to the calling function and the execution resumes. That is a normal scenario what we have seen. But now we are talking about a additional thing, which is a inline function, wherein an inline function is what? A function which is going to be expanded at every call of a function. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you should have a clarity here now between a function and a inline function. So a normal function is what? We have a calling function, say program A, and we are calling a program B, which is a new subroutine or a function. When I am calling program B in program A, how do I call? By using the name of the function. For example, addition is my function. What I will do now? Addition 10, 20. I am calling where? I am calling in a main function. So main function is going to be calling function because I am calling addition 10, 20 by sitting at main function. What will happen now? The control will be passed from the calling function, that is the main function, to the place where addition is defined. It is defined somewhere in the 5000 location, let us say. So your control will be taken from operating system from the current location to that location, that is addition, where it is stored. Execution happens, and at the return 0 you might have written, or return 1 you might have written. Control comes back to the calling function. That is, from addition, control comes back to the main function and continues the further processing or execution. This is a normal scenario. But if I take an inline function, for example, the same addition operation or addition function, I have made it as an inline. What will happen now? When I make it as inline, whenever there is a call for addition, the control will not be moved from calling function to the called function. Rather than that, the expansion, that is wherever I have called addition, in that place only the function, the content of the function, that is the body of the function addition, will get replaced. So when we have a requirement that wherever there is a call for a function, if you want that function call to be replaced, rather we could use the word expanded with the body of that particular function, then we have to make it as a inline. Otherwise, it is of no use, and you should not be doing that recklessly or whenever you want. So what is the need of it? What problem will happen when we move from a calling function to the called function, then execute, comes back to the calling function? So normally, if that subroutine or a function is having a heavy weight, in the sense it takes a lot of time, it depends on so many other activities, then probably we can push it as a what you call a function, because that requires to be performed as if it is a bigger program. So if that is a requirement, we better dedicate it as a normal function. You call that function, leave entire headache to the function only, get only the result to the calling function and process further. There you will use global variable, local variable to make sure that variables are across the functions or blocks are visible. But function we are making to just remove the burden. For example, we have a head, we have a hand, we have a leg. So leg will do its own functionality, hand will do its own functionality. So like that, we have a requirement in a program, better to disseminate that work to that particular function, so that that function gets executed. Only control will be given to the brain. So like that, control will be given to the main program and no headache for the other parts of the program or other parts of the body. But when you want something to be done there and there itself, you don't want to wait, or you don't want to postpone, or you don't want to send the control from the calling function to the called function, then probably you better do within the same program. So what is the advantage for that? So the moving from one place to another place, it takes time. The time is avoided. So when you're trying to avoid time, what we have to do? We have to spend more memory. So you might have seen in ADA, trade-off between time and space. If you want to reduce the time taken by an algorithm, then obviously you are making more memory being eaten. On the other hand, if you want to reduce the memory to be occupied is less, and the time will be taken will be more. So it is always a problem in our computer science. If you want to reduce the time taken by a program, obviously more memory will be consumed. On the other hand, if you want to reduce the memory to be taken less by a program, on the other hand, you might have given a more time for it. So that the trade-off is always there. If you want to strike a balance that is efficiently, an algorithm takes very less time and very less memory, it is going to be very difficult task to achieve. But of course we can achieve, but it takes a lot of R&D to be done from the algorithm perspective. Similarly here, when a function, if you don't want the function to be executed as a function, meaning that control is being given to the function called function executes, comes back to the calling function. If you don't want that process to be involved because it is going to consume some time, what we can do? We can expand the function or body of the function within the main function itself, so that the sending of control from one place to another place for execution purpose is not required, because you are going to consider that within the same function. If that is the case, probably we can call it as a inline function. So inline function is the one, as name says, inline. It is going to be expanded in line, verbatim, line by line, with the body of the program or body of the subroutine rather, wherever that particular function is called or invoked in the main program. So if we make a bigger program to be as an inline function, then we are putting ourselves into trouble. So it is better to avoid a bigger program. How big it should be? So big means maybe more than 3 to 4 lines. It is better to avoid to make it as a inline function, because it is going to have a headache. Second, if a function has internal looping or internal complication, like calling another function, making more variables a part of the program, we should also avoid using them as inline function. If the functionality is very simple, like we have taken an example, no, square of a number, cube of a number, no complication at all, very simple. If that is the case, better to have that function as an inline function. So that's why normally we do not define member functions within the definition of a class, because by doing so, by default, they become a inline function. So we avoid that. That is the simple reason why we avoid defining member functions within the class. So we define them outside the class simply because we don't want them to burden our main program with too much of expansion of the data. It may be easy for us, we may play with the system or compiler, but look at the compiler perspective. It becomes complicated as we go. That means more the number of what you call calls we have for the same function, more number of spaces where we are going to use, or more number of space from memory we are going to use. Second trouble, what might happen with the macro is, if the same macro is called more than once, twice, thrice, 10 times, then the same program gets expanded. So your program, which is a 10 line, will become a 100 line now. So which is again eating lot of memory. So it is not going to serve the purpose. So it is better to use macros for two simple reasons. One, if the macro body is very less in size, maybe 1 line or 2 line, at most 3 lines. Second, it should not be having any complications like calling another function, making more variables declared and stuff like that. And second requirement is, when you are not going to call the same inline function more than once or twice in entire program. If you have more than twice or thrice, if you are going to call the function which is an inline, then it is again not a good idea. So this is how we have to keep in mind with respect to the inline function. So that is an idea behind inline functions, what you have seen in the high level languages. Now let us come to our discussion, which is a macro processor. So as the name says, macro processor deals with macros. So what is a macro now? A macro is nothing but a similar to inline function, meaning that it is also restricted to have very less content or very less body, and also it should not be repeated more than once or twice. That means macro should not be called more than once or twice in the given big program. If that is the case, we can have a macro, but macros are required because we have used them in our high level languages as well, and we have used a preprocessor. The preprocessor is nothing but your macro processor. So macro processor is the one which is performed earlier. So another name for macro processor you might have used in high level languages is a pre-processing, macro processing, all refer to the same thing. So that is an idea behind a macro processor. So what is a macro processor? A macro processor, if you want to define, is a system software which processes macros even before actual compilation or assembly takes place. So that is an idea behind the macro processor. Look at the definition. So a macro processor is going to have a group of statements or group of instructions. The group, how big the group is the question. So that group should be very, very less, 2 or 3 maximum. If you make more than that, it is going to be very difficult, and it is going to easy. So we might have used hash defined pi 3.14 or hash defined max 10 in array. It is going to make sure that or make convenient for the programmer how he or she is defining the program. Instead of using 3.14 into radius, you might have used pi into radius. It makes more sense for the programmer. So readability increases. That's what we say. It is a convenience for the programmer to use these macros or hash defined statements as part of our program. So that's what we have seen, and that's what the meaning actually as far as the macro is concerned. So we have a separate system software which deals with those macros. Your assembler or compiler may not be good enough to do, because we have discussed them so far. We have never touched upon these macros being handled by assembler. Even in future, we will see compiler, we will not see compiler being taking care of the macro separately. But macro processor, which reside as embedded software into the either assembler or compiler, they take care of the macros if at all we have defined them. So what we see is now how macro processors are going to be defined in the program. So is it clear now the concept? What is a macro? So macro is a very small body which is going to be expanded inline whenever there is a call for a macro, and it should not be having more than 2 to 3 lines. Second, it should not be called more than once or twice. If you call many times, no problem, but memory will be taken. It's not a harm. System is not going to say you should not do, but it is going to take, the purpose is not served. The purpose of having a macro is to make it compact, to make it more convenient, understandable. Instead of making convenient, we're making it complicated. So what is the purpose? So then that should not be the case. That is only a convention what we're talking about. So macro should not have more than 2-3 sentences to avoid, and it should not it should be very simple statements. Should not be complicated. And second, it should not be repeated or called more than once or twice. If you do that, so that is going to be more methodical or logical. If you call the same macro more than thrice or 4 times, then purpose is not going to be served. So that is only a caution or a convention. Is that clear now, the concept? Concept of a macro?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Now let us see how to define a macro. So macro, if you look at, we have a source program. Source program normally will be given to the assembler. Assembler will create object program. Object program will be executed. Now we have just talked about now, your macro processor will come before your assembler or compiler. So macro processor is going to first take the program. If at all any macros are there, they will be examined. That will be processed. Later that will be given to the assembler or compiler. If your program does not have any macros, the macro processor is not going to perform anything. Your program will be directly given to the assembler. So normally macro processors are embedded within the assemblers or a compilers. They will not be existing separately. That's why you normally do not find them as an independent entity. They will be part of your assemblers or a compilers. That's what we see. That's what this diagram also talks about. We have a source program. That source program is given to the macro processor if our program contains any macros. Otherwise, source program will be directly processed by either assembler or compiler, post which we'll be getting our object program. So that is the case we normally do this particular macro processing. Next. So what are the functions of a macro processor? There are three functions normally, or functionality rather. One is a macro definition, other one is a macro invocation, next macro expansion. So macro definition, macro invocation, and macro expansion. What is macro definition? You define a function, you define a macro. In the same process, we need to define a macro. Macro invocation, we call a function, we call a macro. The same way, we have to call the macro. Since macros are meant for inline expansion, so we need to look at the expansion of a macro as well. That is the reason why these three becomes major activities of a macro, or functionality to be processed by a macro processor. One is a macro definition, macro invocation, and macro expansion. Let us see one by one. So first one, macro definition. So before we go to macro definition, let us look at the function signature, function definition, or a function prototype. Can anybody help me with the function prototype? How do you define a function prototype?
Return type, function name, arguments.
Return type, function name, arguments. Perfect. So for a function, we have a prototype in the form of return type, name of the function, and associated arguments, whatever we have. In a similar fashion, and followed by, of course, the body of the function when you go for the definition, but prototype is only this much. That's we call it a signature. There is a return type, name of the function, and followed by the associated arguments or the parameters. The same fashion, we have macro definition as well. But here, since we do not use parentheses and all, the definition will have a macro and end as some of the assembler directives. So if you recall, we have stopped somewhere some assembler directives. You can add to those two, these two, that is the macro and end. So there are two assembler directives which will enable the macro definition. So beginning of the program with macro will tell the system that, okay, there is a beginning of a macro, and where it is going to end, MEND. Whenever you see the corresponding MEND, we say that that particular macro has got completed. So that is how the definition is going to be. Let us look at the example. So this is how the structure of a macro is. So macro name, a keyword by name macro, and parameters. Just now we have discussed about the function prototype. Function prototype will have a return type, name of the function, parameters. But here there is no return type because we are not returning anything separately. So macro name, the name of the macro will be the first one. Then macro, macro, which is the keyword or assembler directive that defines it is a macro. Then followed by the parameters. Then whatever you see is the body later. Next we have a MEND. This complete thing is going to be called as a prototype of a macro. Prototype of a macro. So the combination of macro name, macro directive, macro parameters is going to be called as a macro prototype. So this is how the prototype is going to be considered. This comes to the body and we have a macro definition. So complete thing is we have a macro definition. So macro name, keyword macro or assembler directive, macro parameters. Then we have a macro body, then MEND, which says that it is the end of the macro definition. This complete thing is going to be macro definition. So what is a macro prototype here? So macro prototype is only this much, like macro name, keyword macro, parameters. This put together is going to be our macro prototype. But completely this much, this entire thing is going to be macro definition. So that's what we need to understand. So macro definition. So let us take an example of it. So in the same programs what I have taken earlier, the same programs have been rewritten to have a macros. So one is RDREC, we have been using many times. And now we want to define RDREC as a macro. How do I do that? RDREC followed by macro followed by parameters. So you have to observe here that each parameter is prefixed with a ampersand. Each parameter is prefixed with a ampersand. This is to inform that these are the parameters which are used in the definition time, which we call them as a, what type of parameters they are? Normally in a function definition, we use some parameters. In function call, we use some parameters. We have separate names for them. What do you call them? If I define a prototype of a function, I say int a comma int b. What is a and b are called there? What type of parameters? And say some parameters which I use in the function call, say addition 10 comma 20, I call separately some different name. Those 10 comma 20 are called as what, and a comma b are called as what in normal function? What do you call them? What is the name? What about formal parameters and actual parameters?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, what are actual parameters? As the name says, actual. When I say addition 10 comma 20, 10 is the actual value, 20 is the actual value. So at the time of function call, we call them as a actual parameters. At the time of function definition, int a comma int b, we call them as a formal parameters. Similarly here, this ampersand is prefixed to formal parameters. That means at the time of definition, when you are defining some names or some parameters, those parameters should be prefixed with the ampersand, only to inform you that they are not the function call, but they are part of the function, macro definition. So we have to prefix the ampersand just to make sure that they are the part of the macro definition parameters, not as a macro expansion or a macro invocations. That's how the idea is. Let us take the actual program what we have in the book now, so that you will get a more clarity. So this is the program. Hope it is visible to you. I've made it as the 3 parts. This is the main program. The bottom one is a main program. So for this, I have defined 2 subroutines by name RD buff, W buff, or you can say RD REC, W REC. You can just use whatever the names you want. Just understand the concept. Now RD BUFF is a one name of the macro. How do I say? Because there is a word assembler directive by name macro and followed by macro parameters. Hope you can observe here that each parameter is prefixed with a ampersand, simply to make sure that they are the part of our macro definition. So somewhere you will see amend here. This is the amend. So what you see between this part, that is from line number 10 to line number 90, is going to be the part of your macro definition. That is RDBUFF macro followed by 3 parameters, at the end amend. In between whatever you see, you call it as a macro body. Please remember this. I will be using this for the next invocation as well, so you should remember. So RDBUFF, the body is what? Clear X, clear A, clear S until STX ampersand. You just define. This is just a normal program. Don't worry about how it is being written. Just understand this is the body of the macro. Similarly, there is another macro at line number 100, WRBUFF macro. Some ampersand I have used, meaning that it is a macro definition. Somewhere there is MND, and this becomes the body of the macro. Similar to the previous macro. 2 macros we have defined. This is the main program. In main program, I will be calling it. So somewhere I will be calling this. RDBUFF is a macro. WRBUFF is a macro. WRBUFF is a macro. So there are 3 invocations or 3 calls for a macro. So while calling, see, I am not using any ampersand. This is a call for a macro. I'm calling this macro here. I'm calling this macro here. I'm calling this macro here. When I'm calling this macro, look at the position. In the definition position, it is there in the label place. At the time of invocation, it is in the opcode place. That's what differentiates you, which is a macro definition and which is a macro invocation. This is an example for a macro invocation. So macro invocation means I'm going to call the macro with the name of the macro followed by actual parameters. These are the actual parameters. How do I say it is actual parameters? There is no ampersand here. Similarly, I'm calling another macro WRBUFF with actual parameters with this. Again, I'm calling the same macro with actual parameters like this. So this is nothing but a macro call or macro invocation. These three are the macro invocations. So in this example, we have seen two things. One, what is a macro definition and what is a macro invocation. What is a macro definition? A macro definition is one which is surrounded by two keywords, that is macro and amend. And macro invocation is one, a direct call for a macro with actual parameters. And second thing is, in the macro definition, formal parameters are used with the ampersand, whereas in the case of call for a macro, we are not going to use any ampersand directly, they will be used. So this is the macro definition and macro invocation. Let us see macro invocation in more formal way. This is how in the exam you cannot write a big programs, so better to have a small skeletons like this. So you can use the skeletons like this. Our interest is how a macro is defined, how a macro is called. This is a macro definition. We have given macro definition and we are explaining how a macro is being called. So look at the positions. RDREC is in the label position in the time of definition, whereas in the case of a call, RDREC is in the opcode position. So that's how we are going to make sure. So this just write some example of this and show in the exam. So that's what we are going to say. This is the format. So syntax is the name of the macro and actual parameters that you want to be associated. Whereas ampersand is only for the macro definition. So in the actual parameters, there is no ampersand here. Direct the values will be provided. This is the macro invocation. Now let us look at the macro expansion. So macro expansion means that's what we have been observing as far as the inline functions or macros are concerned. So whenever there is a call for a macro, meaning that since I have called this macro, what will happen? When it is given to the object code, what will happen? This call is disappear. This call will get disappeared, but in the place of a call, you will see the body of this will be coming into picture. For example, in our example here, we have RDBUFF. We'll take an example of a expansion now. During expansion, you will see, you will not see RDBUFF, F1 buffer and all. It will be replaced by this, that is a clear X, clear A up to STX. This body will come and sit here in the place of a RDB. That is the concept of a expansion, inline expansion. That's why it is a name inline. So inline means each line verbatim they will be copied wherever there is a call. We will see the example of a expansion now. So that is an example of that is the concept of a expansion. Let us take the example. This is what we have taken for our exam point of view. I will share this with you later. For understanding, you can take this. The start is there, beginning, end is there. We have defined a macro by name RDREC. I have used some random variables. Don't worry about that. But when there is a definition, you have to have a ampersand. So I have used three contents. What are the three contents? Clear, LDCH. Now, in the main program, I'm going to make a call for RDREC with some data, another call for RDREC with another data. That's why I have mentioned it as a first call and second call. This is the original program, source program. Now, after expansion, what will happen? It will become like this. So start is there, end is there. After that, RDREC is there. So whenever there is RDREC, that RDREC need to be replaced by the body of RDREC. What is the body of RDREC? This is the body of RDREC. What does it contain? Clear X, clear A, LDCH, ampersand, buff. But ampersand buff is what? A formal parameter. In that place, what I have sent? I have sent it as a MEM. So I'm going to replace this with a MEM. So while expanding, there is no ampersand. Please be remembering that. So expansion means actual parameters, no formal parameters. So ampersand is removed and that is replaced by the actual value, which is a MEM. Again, I am going to call the same in the second part with some different values. Again, it will be expanded with clear X, clear A, and what I am passing now is a LOC in the place of BUFF. So LOC will be replaced. This is for you to understand. In the exam, you can write a simple one. But let us take what is there in the textbook now. The same program what you have seen now. What is the original program? This is the original program. So original program is the main program, one macro, second macro. So in this program, when I'm calling RDBUFF, it will be expanded here at line number 190, and WRBFF will be expanded at line number 210, again at line number 220. Let us see how it is being done. So now I am at line number 180, which is a start. Sorry, line number 5, which is a start. Second, if you remember the main program is having STL RETDR. STL RETDR is a instruction. So I will write as it is. So STL RETDR is repeated as it is. The what else is there in the original program? Original program. Next is RDBUFF F1 buffer length. Now we are going to make a invocation or call for a macro at line number 190. What will happen now? This line will be replaced. This line will be replaced with what? With the body of this macro. What is the body here? Body here is clear X, clear A, clear S up to STX. Let us see whether it is done or not. Please remember that clear A. See, this is written as a start dot just for you to understand. I told that it is replaced, but now we have used it for our understanding, because if you remember, there is a dot here. Dot means it is a comment. So they have made it as a comment and shown to us just to remember that this is what it is going to happen. But actually, this line will not be appearing in the program. This will be replaced by clear X, clear A, clear S, and up to STX. Just what the body we have seen now. So body of RDBUFF is what this is. And wherever F1 buffer length are there, they will be actual parameters. What are the formal parameters? Formal parameters are this. Formal parameters are ampersand INDEV, ampersand buff address, ampersand REC ATH. Wherever they are there, they will be replaced by actual parameters. You can see. So TD is having some different name there. Now it is having different name here. So they get the replacement for the actual parameters, and you do not see any ampersand here. That means it got expanded. So what happened later now? Let us look at the original program. So after STL, after RDBUFF, what is there? LDA length, compare JEQ. Until we get another macro call, we have 3 additional instructions. Let us see what happened to them. They will be there as it is. That's all. So LDA is there, comp is there, JEQ is there. Now again there is a call for the another macro. What is that macro? WRBUFF 5 buffer length. So look at this here now. Again, thus that WRBUFF will be replaced by its body. What is the body of that? Let us see. The body of that will be clear X until JLT. Clear X until JLT. So clear X until JLT, this part. So up to this, the body will be used. So like this, wherever there is a call for a macro, macro will be expanded. Macro will be literally coming into the place where macro call is there, that get replaced with the body of the macro. This is called as a macro expansion. So what will happen at the time of macro expansion? So macro call will be replaced by the body of the macro with actual parameters. So that is the concept of a macro expansion. So go through these concepts or discuss or remember. Meanwhile, let me take the attendance. If you have any doubts, I will come back to you on that. May I have attendance? Asta?
Present, sir.
Abhinav, Aishwarya,
Present, sir.
Ambarish,
Yes, sir.
Anu,
Present, sir.
Arbaz,
Yes, sir.
Arjun,
Present, sir.
Ashok,
Present, sir.
Vinita, Bhargavi, Bhavisha,
Present, sir.
Chaitra,
Present, sir.
Chatterjee,
Present, sir.
Manjul, Diksha,
Present, sir.
Deepika LG,
Present, sir.
Deepika MB,
Present, sir.
Murli Krishna,
Present, sir.
Gangubai,
Present, sir.
Surya Kumari,
Present, sir.
Harshit,
Present, sir.
Junjar,
Present, sir.
Kavya,
Present, sir.
Kishore,
Present, sir.
Lata, Lata, Manisha,
Present, sir.
Manjunath,
Yes, sir.
Nayana,
Present, sir.
Niranjan,
Yes, sir.
Nishant,
Present, sir.
Pavitra,
Present, sir.
Maithili,
Present, sir.
Priyanka,
Present, sir.
Pavan Kumar,
Present, sir.
Akash,
Present, sir.
Rajeshwari,
Present, sir.
Rakesh, Ramya,
Present, sir.
Rashmi, Ravishankar,
Yes, sir.
Ridwan,
Present, sir.
Vishal, Vishal, Savita, Shruti,
Present, sir.
Sneha,
Yes, sir.
Spurti, Srinidhi, Srinivas,
Present, sir.
Sunil, Vaishnavi,
Present, sir.
Vinny,
Present, sir.
Sir, present, sir.
Present, sir.
okay. Any doubts? Okay. Any doubts so far? Macro definition, macro invocation, and macro expansion. So I will wind up for today's class with this. We'll continue with the next. So meanwhile, you can take an example. Sorry, you can take an assignment. You have taken yesterday the third assignment. I told you we will